Friends, I hope you stick through the list. These tips really seem to help me. We're going to cover some novel things I do with fasting, frequencies, cold shock proteins, and sleep. But first, I know you're probably thinking, what does this guy need help with? He's perfection personified, a goat of goats, an Adonis of Adonises. Rest assured though, I am not. And all I wanted to feel for the last 5 years was normal. When I am is confidently irregular. Like the discount racket Ross, I'm marked down. Some of my official diagnoses: depression, panic attacks, chronic fatigue, GAD, SSHL, ADHD, PTSD, ESPN. I don't know, there's like too many acronyms to keep track of. I didn't believe any of those things were even real things. Mind over matter, I tell myself, as I refused help from really at an early age. Since I can remember, I was a go-getter though. I used to sell these pens to classmates. I'd tell them, it's got 4 colors, 4 for $1. I don't know why I did that accent. I worked 14-hour days, 6-7 days a week for over a decade with nary a vacation. And then almost suddenly I was incapable, unfocused, and unmotivated. It was so Dadaistic, I needed to know why. So I finally went to the doctors, felt like a lab rat, and went through a gamut of tests that ultimately led nowhere. Testosterone, thyroid therapy, apnea. I had to wear this Bane mask for like 6 months.
Then you have my permission to die, Batman.
In the process, I ballooned to 300 pounds. The end was nigh, and I've been trying to escape this black hole since. What I'd like to share today are the small 7 simple steps I do to help combat these issues for a healthier and more productive life. Number 0, great sleep, good morning. I used to fiddle on the iPad until like 2 or 3 in the morning, completely screwing with my circadian rhythm. The sleep-wake cycle is important for hormone production, cell regeneration, brain function, and just overall energy. And instead of valuing it, I hate watch the news, put on a movie, or fell asleep to puppy videos with the screen like inches away from my eyeballs. Now I go to bed much earlier, get a full 8 hours with no stressful jolt from an alarm clock. While I sleep, I play calming music tuned to 528 Hertz with no screens on. It's kind of hard to find solid data here, but there was a small study done on 9 participants in Japan. Listening to music at 528 Hertz reduced cortisol levels, increased oxytocin, and modulated autonomic nervous system activity via decrease in LF-HF ratio. In other words, participants measured and self-reported stress and mood level improvements compared to the standard 440 Hertz frequency that most music is tuned to. So that's the reason I do that. Number 1, the first thing I do is not what I do. I said do. It's what I don't do. I used to check messages, email, and the news first thing in the morning. These are all stressors, and stress is fatiguing. Not exactly the best way to start the day. The first I heard of win the first hour to win the day came from this video with Tim Quick. So for the first hour, every morning, I take no screen time other than to cue up Baroque music at 528 Hertz. Why Baroque? Studies on plants have shown significant growth and movement towards the speaker playing Baroque classical music versus control. Growth was stunted, conversely, and moved away from the speakers when music like heavy metal was played versus control. Also, a memory course I took as a kid suggested it, so I actually used to study Vivaldi, and today it helps me get the morning started right. Number 2, the next thing I do is either HIIT or WIM. High intensity interval training for 3 minutes on the air bike was first introduced to me by Dr. Michael Mosley. Yes, that's a whopping 3 minutes of exercise. It gets better though. It's only 1 minute of high intensity. I get on the bike and coast for 40 seconds, to get the blood flowing. Then it's full blast for 20 seconds. I do that 2 more times and then I'm done. Here's what it can do. A 2011 study published in Medicine and Science found up to a 35% improvement in insulin sensitivity after a couple weeks. Insulin resistance is a main factor in metabolic syndrome, increasing the risk for things like coronary disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes. Dr. Mosley himself reported a 24% improvement through basically riding a bike really hard for a grand total of 3 minutes a week. So I do that too, 3 days a week. I also wear this inspiratory muscle trainer since I have borderline asthma. It creates breathing resistance by restricting airflow on the intake. I won't go further as data is conflicting on the other benefits, but I got this one because it came with like 14 different intake hole sizes and more importantly, a DVD on how to win bar fights. Now on my WIM days, I start with 50 push-ups, 10 at a time, not to failure. I picked this up from Faraz Sahabi, who was on the GRE pod. He doesn't believe in working your muscles to failure, and he trained George St. Pierre, so good enough for me. Push-ups are a great overall body weight exercise you can do practically anywhere for a little pick-me-up. The main thing, though, comes next. I do Wim Hof's breathing exercise. I originally thought he was like some Gandalf-looking wacko, but now totally revere him. Wim is the guy who can sit in an ice bath for, I think it was like a Guinness World Record of an hour, 50-something minutes. He has been studied and has trained people who have been studied. An NIH article showed his breathing techniques allowed participants to exhibit profound increases in the release of epinephrine, which begets an increase in anti-inflammatory markers and a decrease in pro-inflammatory cytokine responses. In other words, it decreases inflammation, which is great. In practice, this has had a tangible and beneficial effect on my mood and a slight uptick in motivation. I had the privilege to work for one of the most brilliant minds in the world and had a chance to document his father, who promoted this thing called harmonicas for health. I wondered why, and it was the significance of the breathing. But I'm tone deaf, so Wim Hof it is. So to recap, I alternate between HIIT days and WIM days, 6 days a week, with the rest on Sundays. This gives my ADHD brain a switch up so it doesn't start becoming dreadful to me. What did happen to our attention spans? If we had like those Star Trek teleporters, we'd still complain about the wait time. Like, can you believe it took 5 seconds to get to Europa today? Number 3, the thing I least look forward to. Regardless of HIIT or WIM, I immediately follow with a cold shower. I start normally and then go as cold as I can get it for at least 30 seconds, ideally 1 to 2 minutes towards the end. Cold shock proteins aid in muscle repair and recovery from inflammation. You see athletes all the time sitting in ice baths or going into cryo chambers for recovery. Taking a cold shower is mild in comparison, but I can do this every day and cuss if I need to in the comfort of my own home. Cold showers can also increase alertness, energy levels, and release endorphins for those of you who are dealing with a bit of depression as well. Conversely, a hot shower will make me feel more tired as it can activate the parasympathetic nervous system. I can confidently say that doing the Wim Hof breathing allows me to deal with the cold significantly better and for a longer period of time. Number 4, H2O. I drink 24 ounces of cold water as part of the morning routine to boost my metabolism. Similar to a cold shower, the body has to regulate the temperature of the cold water, thereby giving a slight boost in energy. Water's also an element of life, and I didn't drink enough of it. Growing up poor should have meant more water intake, but we didn't know any better, so the fridge was always stocked with 2-liter bottles of soda and juices. Just terrible. In another life, we'd probably end up watering our plants with Brondo.
The Brondo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
Number 5, meditate to medicate. I was not a believer in meditation, at least for me. I was antsy, anxious, and anti-sitting still. I didn't get it. I couldn't do it. But I got so much out of Wim Hof's breathing, which is sort of meditative, that I began to explore a bit more. I found Sam Harris's 8-minute guided meditation that really simplified things for me and was reassuring that I was doing things correctly. So now every day I meditate breathing in through the nose and out the mouth, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. As a full-on mouth breather, I think breathing through the nose isn't talked about enough. First, it can deliver more oxygen to your system, and antithetically, mouth breathing can activate your sympathetic nervous system and create this like chronic bias towards the fight or flight state. Not good if you're like already anxious or irritable or depressed. Second, it cleans the air you breathe. Cilia cells in your nasal passageways trap bad particles from the air you intake. The way I think of it is it's better for your house to have a clean furnace filter than a dirty one. Number 6, the to-do list. So I've been fortunate enough to have the time to talk to a therapist once a week for the last 2 years. And one of his suggestions I found useful was to write to-do lists with only 1 or 2 items at a time. Only add to it once you've finished. It makes the day for me seem less intimidating and more productive. Along with that, I like to plan what the major priority is the night before, so that the following day, it's the first thing I attack after my routine. No emails, no social media, no peeking at the news, not until the day is winding down. Your life, your agenda first, everything else can wait a bit, and that's okay. Number 7, fasting. So I don't eat until my day is done. Every time I do eat, I go into a kind of food coma and don't really want to do much of anything. So skipping breakfast and lunch saves me a ton of money, saves me a ton of time thinking about what to eat. I am at baseline a 16/8 intermittent faster each day. This, along with the eliminating of sugar, processed foods, and most carbs, allowed me to get from that 300 pounds down to about 175, 180. I do a bunch of other fasts for other reasons, but my baseline is pretty necessary for me to feel well and productive during the weekdays. This overall probably had the biggest impact on my health, my mood, my energy levels. If you haven't done so, you can check out some of the videos on fasting I've done. I think it's fascinating stuff. I'll put the pertinent links in the description. Nevertheless, I require the routine of going through 0 through 7 to optimize my day. In conclusion, my conceit is that these tricks were just as or more beneficial in controlling my mood and production. Medications can obviously be a beneficial course of treatment, if not a bit myopic if solely relied upon, and I do currently also take meds. They are also confusing. I was prescribed Zoloft and they listed as potential side effects diarrhea, constipation, weight gain, weight loss? What the heck? I mean, that's like me telling a date, look, listen, I might spoil you and treat you like a princess, or I might murder you with a pitchfork. Anyways, I do hope you found some of this useful and not some paradiddle from a defective mutant with adorably asymmetrical dimples. And if you did find some of this useful, I would appreciate a subscription and a like. It's 2 clicks, 3 if you hit the bell. If you lasted this long, we put 8 tips together. That's 3 clicks for 8 tips. That's a great deal, right? I know I titled it like 7 simple steps. Consider the 8th a discount. You got 1 free tip so that I could alliterate. I can't help it. This brain is irregular. And it's okay.